in this operation in Afghanistan and keeps telling me, give me some actionable intelligence. I keep telling him, give me some action, I'll give you some intelligence. In short, you need some boots on the ground to move the terrorists and make them make a mistake so we can pick it up and then get them. And you can't do that from a distance.
Speaking of the cost, Appropriations Chairman David Ovey has suggested that maybe some sort of a war tax could be imposed in order to pay for this. Will you be able to sell this to fellow members of Congress and the people in your 7th District in Pennsylvania?
I'm going to try. I may not, I agree with the thought process of Dave. But I think overall the issue is, how do you do this? One, bring it into the budget and either find programs that should be cut or have the courage to raise the revenues, as he said. But I'm not sure you just tax the more wealthy. What about the $79 billion that special interest oil companies have in tax loopholes that we might want to better have pay for this war? We shouldn't add it to the debt, and I agree with Dave Ovey's approach on that, because it helps in the prioritization which Congress is supposed to do of how should we pay for it without indebting our future.
Next call comes from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Barry opposes the president's proposal. Go ahead.
Yes, I supported the president right up until he started pandering more to the right wing. And I mean, if you're going to get voted in by one people, then go with them. You're supposed to leave with the person you came with. But see, I don't even think we should be in the Afghan war, because right before the war started, taking people way back in 2001, there was like this big media frenzy of where the right-wingers syndicated all these people, Hannity and O'Reilly and all these people, the day before 9/11 happened. Go back and look in syndication, and you can actually look in the files and see that they were syndicated by the media the day before 9/11 happened, or the 2 days before. But the point is they knew something was going to happen, so that they were pushing their media right-wing agenda. And this president's just carrying on everything that the first president did.
Barry, thanks for your opinion. I was stationed at the Pentagon when 9/11 happened, and I took over the Navy's anti-terrorism unit right afterwards, called Deep Blue. And I saw and had access to much material. I strongly believe that while the interagency did not coordinate information that seemed to be in disparate places, that what occurred was not orchestrated at 9/11. We may differ on that, but I strongly believe that. What is important now, I think, is that the change that 9/11 brought about. Before 9/11, we liked what I call away games. We liked our wars over there. With 9/11, all of a sudden we started having home games. We could be damaged here at home. I think this president has taken that into account. It's not whether it's right or left. He should be, and I believe he is, making this irregardless of political consequences, but for what's right for this nation. If we don't stop them there, they may end up damaging us here. I didn't agree with that in Iraq because we brought al-Qaeda to Iraq. But I know from having pursued those terrorists as head of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit, and then having command of my battle group and doing the strikes in there, that leadership that damaged us is there, and we must eradicate that threat.
Our next call for Representative Joe Sestak comes from Fort Pierce, Florida. Mark supports the president.
Good morning, Mr. Sestak. Good morning, C-SPAN.
Good morning, Mark.
Let me commend C-SPAN for not putting different party lines to call in, just oppose and not oppose. This way parties aren't against each other. You're with the president or you aren't with the president. Excellent idea, C-SPAN. I like it. On the president's decision, I'm sure he thought real hard and real long, and his party's, questioning him now. But I do think he made the right decision. I know he opposed the war in Iraq, but the fact remains, we're still in Iraq. We're still there maintaining stability. The only thing that bothers me is that, he doesn't commend the surge in Iraq because of Afghanistan as the excuse. But the big thing that I see is, how can you mention a pullout on war when nobody has any idea how long it's going to take, how long the commanders of the ground are going to stipulate how we're going to move. And when I look at the time date, it exactly exceeds the amount of time. 1 year is in there now. He's going to send troops from about 18 to 24 months That's perfect timing for his re-election running, and then some of the troops coming home and him to claim victory. That seems the only reason why he would do that, but I'm very proud of the man making a very tough decision, and thank you for C-SPAN.
Mark, thank you. There's 2 points I wish the president had stressed more. The first is an emphasis that it really is about al-Qaeda in Pakistan. That's where they are. That's what threatens America. No, and he did that, but I would have loved more an emphasis upon that. And it might have been for sensitivity to Pakistan. But to your issue, I wish that a definitive timetable to withdraw had not been placed, because I don't believe it's as much to do with the central government of Afghanistan and having them step to the plate. We can't put our security in their hands if it's al-Qaeda in Pakistan. What I wish he had done, however, to let everyone know this wasn't an open-ended commitment, although was emphasized the part of the speech where he says conditions on the ground will be taken into account. In short, what we had heard he would promise, and they actually promised us, the administration, in March, was to provide an exit strategy by which we would have benchmarks that measure success and failure. And then the public can know, is the strategy working? And actually, if they can't provide that, how do they know this is the right course? So if they give us that, we would be able, and they would be able to say, it's successful, we're exiting on this timeline. Number two, if it isn't working, it then triggers either an exit to an alternative strategy, one that some call a containment strategy, where you do it from a distance, and then the public can see the cost and benefits. I would prefer that, and in fact, the talking points on the sheet that was given by the White House does say that there will be measurements of progress. To me, that's essential after 8 years, rather than a definitive timetable. And I think that would serve the public better, because conditions on the ground about al-Qaeda and getting them are measurements we need more than just the definitiveness of this date we will do X.
Lee opposes the president's proposal and calls us from Burlington, North Carolina. Lee?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, Lee.
My question is, if this war, my question is this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Lee, go ahead.
Okay, my question is this. If this war is about national security, then why are we only sending 30,000 troops? And the answer for that is because the president's heart is not in this war. He does not want to send those 30,000 troops that he's going to send. If he did want to send them, he would have sent them 2, 3, 4 weeks ago when the general requested them. This is a half-cocked plan. It's guaranteed to fail.
Lee, thanks for that question, and I'm glad to answer this one. The reason I felt that Iraq was such a tragic misadventure, not only because it wasn't a clear danger, but it wasn't a present danger. And people say, listen to the generals. But remember, General McChrystal is responsible for Afghanistan. He's not even responsible for what we're doing in Pakistan. What about the general who's in South Korea today? This president, and the reason I respected his deliberate approach, has to take in the whole cloth of our national security by putting more troops in Afghanistan because of the following. For the last 4.5 years, there has not been one Army unit here at home that can respond to any of the war plans, the entire annex of war plans we have in the Pentagon. For example, several divisions to flow to South Korea to help defend that country and our 27,000 troops there if North Korea were to do what they did in 1950 and attack. This president had to assess what's the impact upon the rest of our security of putting X amount of troops in Afghanistan. He needs to listen to the general there, but he also needs to listen to his collective national security input from around the world, and that's what he did. No, 30,000 troops. I believe in the way that he then emphasized we're not just to rely upon the central government, but local autonomous governors, then gave the proper input to this president to say this is what I believe is needed to be done. And that I'm glad he did.
You're in a senatorial campaign to unseat Arlen Specter. How is this going to play on the campaign trail?
Doesn't matter. This is the right decision of what I believe in. I understand I'm in a Democratic primary. But there's one thing that I find is lacking in Washington, D.C. is accountable leadership. So many people want to be responsible, but few want to be accountable. So 2 months ago, I actually put out an op-ed to every one of the 67 counties of Pennsylvania newspapers, media, what I believed in this, which is essentially what the president's plan is. I said 30 to 35,000, 3 to 5 years. We should be there. It will take.